Hello and welcome to Greetingstar. I'm so glad you could join me today. So here are the 4 cards I'll be making this fall, and I use this Impression Obsession die. It's called Sunflower Background and it is die 515-YY. So if you'd like to get it yourself, you can look for it online. I'll also link all the products I use down below this video. So I'm just going to use some iCraft Deco Foil Transfer Gel, and I'm going to apply it with a brush, and I want to make sure I have that water there because as soon as I'm done applying it, I want to put my brush in that water to soak so it doesn't ruin the brush if it dries on it. So now I'm just applying this liberally all over the stencil, and when I'm finished with that, I did try it with a palette knife too. I was looking to try to get as smooth as coverage as I possibly could. I didn't try a sponge dauber, but that's something you might also consider. Anyway, once I've applied this, I'm going to let it dry for at least an hour, maybe 2, just depending. When it's completely dry, it will be clear. You won't really be able to see it. Now this is a Gina K Thermoweb, really beautiful yellow foil paper that I'm using, and I did decide to put the a little backing of white paper behind it because I was afraid it might stick to my plastic cover there. So you can see it did stick, and if this happens to you, there's a pretty easy fix. What I did was I peeled it off and I tried to remove as much as I could by pulling off any background paper on the back there. You can see that little strip there, and then any little pieces that are left there, I just used some water on my finger and I rubbed it away and it came right off. It worked beautifully, so you might want to try that if you ever run into that problem yourself. So now what I did with the flower was I paper pieced, and you can see that the petals are a beautiful yellow, and that's a Cricut paper. It's a specialty paper. It's called the Pearl paper in the neutrals pack. And then for the sky there, that's just some pattern paper. Now I'm going to use some Nouveau crystal drops here, and I primed it because I want to make sure there wasn't any air in the system when I put those little beads in there. So I'm just pulling straight up when I apply this Nouveau crystal drop so that way it doesn't move on to the next little drop. If you just pull straight up when you're done, stop squeezing a little bit and pull straight up, and then you'll get a beautiful pearl every single time. So I did that, and here you can see the result, but I wasn't satisfied with that white background. I didn't like it, so I decided to go ahead and trim that off, and you definitely need to let those Nouveau drops dry first. So you're going to want to, so I trimmed that off, and I decided that I love this burnished gold paper, and I'm going to trim that down and make it for my card. I didn't want to waste the whole sheet, so I thought I would cut out the center of it with one of my rectangular dies here and save that piece there for use on another card. Nobody will be the wiser. So I'm going to adhere that to my card base, and then I'm going to put this on top. Now I do play with it a little bit and say, would it look better underneath or would it look better on top? I frequently do that with my cards. I think it's part of the creative process. I have kind of an idea of what I want, but when I start making it, I play around and just try to find what looks best to my eye. And you know what's interesting is that we're all different. Some people may prefer it underneath, and some people perhaps would like the way it looks better on top. So that's part of the fun part of the creative process, just playing around. And here's another tip I have for you. If you're applying tape like this, try to leave the piece flat and don't move it around, because then you're going to get adhesive on the front of it, and you don't want adhesive on the front of it. So try to be still with it. So here's the finished product. You can see I added a greeting and embossed it in gold, and on that same beautiful gold paper. So here are some of the other cards here that I'm doing, and I love that gold paper so much. I have a shiny gold and like a mirrored cardstock, and I also have the burnished gold. And then this is a piece of pattern paper with all the beautiful autumn colors, and I thought that was really pretty too. So I cut it out with the die. And then instead of using a pencil to trace, because this background is really dark, I didn't think I could see a pencil. I just thought I'd trace around that center part with my little tool there, and so I did that so I'd know where to cut it, because I'm going to put this on the back so it looks like the sunflower you know, center is darker usually in person. So I wanted to replicate that with my card design. So I've done that, and then I'm just going to adhere that to the back of it, and then I'm going to put that whole thing on that pearl, that beautiful paper there on the side. Again, that is the Cricut pearl paper, and this time I think it's the pastel set of colors. It comes in different packs, neutrals, pastels, so you can look for that online. Again, I'll have the products linked down below for you. So I'm just using some Tombow Mono adhesive here to put in the little spots that have enough room to put it on. And there the finished product is. And I also used a sticker at the top there just to decorate it a little bit more. Now here are the other two, and you can see there's the mirrored shiny gold. And I put that on a background that was a very warm color because I thought it looked better. That orangish yellow there with some pink. And again, I'm using some tape runner here to apply it to my card base. Now, the interesting thing is about this is it's repositional tape runner, and I always like to use that because either one, I don't get the paper straight on the card base, or two, I change my mind and want to change the design. So that might be a tip for you. If you tend to frequently change your mind or have difficulty getting it straight on the card base, you might want to use repositionable instead of a more permanent tape runner. I also have the big ATG tape gun, which is definitely a permanent. Once you put that on, it's difficult to get the paper back off. So that's why I like using the repositionable. The only thing about the repositionable, though, is that if you're leaving your cards in your stash for a while and plan to use them months down the road, when you pull them out, they may not stick very well. So that's just a little tidbit of information for you that I have learned in my experience of making cards in these past 3, 4, 5 years. So I'm putting it on here, and then I'm going to trim it down. I always like to cut my paper just a little bit bigger than the card size because I find that oftentimes when you're cutting paper, nothing is ever exact or perfect. So, or I don't know if it's just me or or the cards, but anyway, that's a little tip that I have found handy that comes in handy for me. So I'm going to adhere that beautiful mirrored cardstock there to that, and I'll do the same thing with that beautiful burnished gold with the blue color. So I thought the burnished gold went better with the cool color of the blue, and the mirrored cardstock went better with the warm color there of the orange and yellowish and red. So I'm just going to use some Tombow Mono on the center, and then I think I decided to use the tape runner around the edges. I didn't want to use the tape runner, well actually it looks like I'm going to use it. I think on the burnished one I didn't use it, but anyway, I play around with my different adhesives to see the different effects you'll have. I'm always worried about it when you have a really fine thin line like this, of it seeping out. I don't like it seeping out and making a mess on the front of my card. Although this Tombow Mono dries clear, so you can't really see it anyway. But I just think it's a good idea to have different adhesives in your stash for different purposes. So that's another tip that might help you. Okay, so here's a look at the 3 cards. I haven't added greetings yet, but you'll see that at the end of the video, so stay tuned. And then next up, I'm going to use the negative space. Remember when I used that iCraft transfer gel? Well, on the bottom of it, this is the negative part. So after you pull up the stencil, you're left with this background. And to get a thicker coverage, you definitely want to use a palette knife to do this. So I made this card a couple different times, so you can see here that the first time I used the brush, which is what I showed you at the beginning of this video, and the second time I used the palette knife. So I got thicker coverage with the palette knife. So what I'm going to do is just decide how I want to back this. And I've got different colors of pattern paper in the background. And I'm just trimming out the petals here because I don't want that gold. You can see some of the lines there don't look very good. So I'm just trimming that out. And once that's done, I'm going to decide how I want to lay it out on my card. And I thought that those beautiful autumn golds and oranges and purples and reds looked really pretty for this particular focal point image. and I'm just cutting this out very slowly. I'm sorry, I should have sped up the video here for you, but anyway, just trimming that out with my scissors here. And I decide later to go in and use a sponge dauber to color the white parts of this image. So I use some dye ink, some Memento dye ink, and a sponge dauber to color the center of the flower. You'll see that a little bit later on. But I color the center of the flower with some browns, 2 different tones of brown, and then I color the petals of the sunflower with a Memento yellow ink. I think I use the Dandelion yellow ink, but again, I'll have all the supplies listed in the below the video for you if you'd like to recreate it. Once I'm done cutting this out here, I go through several iterations of this card because I just was trying to find again what would look best with it. And a lot of times when you're making cards, you do that. You tend to, you know, like I said, you'll have an idea in your mind to start with, like either a technique that you want to do, or, you know, perhaps a look that you're trying to go for, but you can't quite accomplish it right off the bat. So sometimes you have to play around. So here I am just putting it down on the different papers, deciding how it looks, and do I like this? Do I not like this? Should I change the position? Should I change the background? So there's lots of different things that I think about when I'm making cards. I don't know about you. Maybe you can leave a comment down underneath the video about the process that you go through, because I'm sure everybody's process is a little bit different depending on their likes and dislikes and their experience and so on and so forth. So anyway, this is just what I do, and maybe this process will give you some information and help you somewhat. So when I've got that done, I decide to cut out of the pattern paper that pretty little butterfly there, and I decide that she would look really nice right there on that flower. So I do adhere her to the flower when I'm done. So you can see that this card is actually coming together nicely, but it doesn't quite feel finished, and I'm still not really pleased with its look, so that's why I'm continuing to play around with it here, just thinking as I go along, trying to figure out what would work best. And I do decide that this paper needs a mat. So I use that mirrored gold cardstock, and I create a mat for it, and then I put this there on it. And I'm still not done. I cut out another butterfly because I thought the first one didn't look very good. And then once I'm done with that, I do decide to adhere it all together, because I think, okay, I'm not going to come up with any more ideas. This is it. This is what I'm going to do. And lo and behold, once I get it adhered to the card, you will see that I pull it up and decide to do something different with it. Okay, so what I decide to do differently is the ribbon. So I do go ahead and look at it for a little bit to make sure that this is what I want to do. And then I pull it up and adhere that ribbon and add a bow with a glue dot. Now you can see here that I still haven't come to the brilliant idea of coloring in the center and the petals. Actually, that was an idea that my mom gave me, so credit to her. So anyway, I went ahead and colored the center there with 2 different shades of brown, brownish oranges, and the petals I colored with a yellow color. Again, I used the Memento Dewdrop inks. And then also for the butterfly, I colored the center of him with like a black marker, and then I added some pink rhinestones, some pink rhinestones to the tips of both of her wings that you can see there. They look like dewdrops, but they're really pink. I can't think, rhinestones. They're the pink rhinestones. Okay, so that's what that card looks like. And then on to the rest of them, you can see a final version of all the other cards right here. And you can see that I did add some stamping for the greetings. And in the top left, you can see a hello. That's from a Hero Arts stamp and die cut set. And I also backed it with a brown, so the original die cut's a beautiful mirrored gold card stock, and then I backed it with a brown just to give it differentiation so you could see it better against the background of that beautiful sunflower there. And then the top middle card is the original one that I made with a beautiful thermal web foil, Gina K Designs. And the thankful greeting stamp is embossed in gold. And then I also cut out another little piece of that burnished gold and embossed the For You with gold embossing powder. And that looks really cool, I think. I really like the way that looks. And then in the bottom left, you see the Happy Fall there, and that's stamped with black Versum fine ink. And then I did go over the letters with my Sakura Glaze pen in clear ink, just to make it look stand out more. Sometimes when you stamp on pattern paper, it doesn't stand out enough. So you can either heat emboss with a black embossing powder, or since I had stamped it with the VersaFine, I went over it with a Sakura Glaze. And so then at the bottom, on the bottom right is the Happy Thanksgiving, and I did the same thing with that. I stamped it with VersaFine and went over it with a Sakura Glaze. Now in the middle there, that purple card with the beautiful autumn colors for the sunflower, I added a pretty peel-off sticker. It's a gold peel-off flower. You could also add any kind of greeting that you'd like. I thought either with sympathy or thankful for you, or we're praying for you, or something like that. Anything like that would be great for those cards. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun. I hope that maybe you learned something. If you'll comment down below what you like, or what you've learned, or anything about the process of creating cards or the process of being creative, I'd love to hear back from you. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a beautiful day.